Introductory Wampanoag. I'm going to be teaching you the basics of the Wampanoag language. I do have a disclaimer. I am not Native American. I'm doing this video because I'm interested in languages in general. Languages are vital to a person's culture and identity, and the fact that Native American languages are critically endangered is very sad. So any attempt to revitalize languages should be agreeable. So, who are the Wampanoag? They are a tribe in Massachusetts, specifically near the Cape, and they're famous for their interaction with the Pilgrims. But here is the catch: they are still alive, breathing, living, thriving today. So let's start. Wampanoag as a language has an interesting syntax, especially with the verbs. They don't conjugate. Rather, we attach pronoun particles to them. Essentially, Wampanoag is an agglutinative language. We see a similar pattern with possession. Seat means foot. Nu seat is my foot, where nu means my. So Wampanoag languages work as follows: base word plus prefix and then followed by the suffix. And the prefix is the pronoun aspect and the suffix is indicating pluralization or cases and etc. Let's continue. So one thing we have to know is that Wampanoag language distinguishes between animate objects and inanimate objects, alive or not alive. They also distinguish between currently existing and former, so alive, dead, here, no longer here. And there's two forms of we, kind of like the Dravidian languages in India. We inclusive, you and me, and then we exclusive, we but not you. Wampanoag language has two plural forms. For the inanimate, you add the ash suffix. Onash and owash are depending on the variations of the word that you are using. Animate suffixes have ak as a suffix. So, apun is an inanimate noun meaning bed. To say the beds, we say apunash. For animate nouns, like bear, which is musk, one bear, two bears is maskak. Now, we have agglutination for singular and plural former, which is I and uk. So ontukaus, a wolf that's not here is ontukausai. Multiple wolves that are not here are ontukausuk. Now, there's something called the oppiative suffix, which is when an animate noun does something to another animate noun, and that suffix is ah. So mask kakiv ontukausah. The bear runs to the wolf. Now we have a locative suffix which is ut, like on the table or in the house. Verbs are a bit complicated. Let's go simply. You have the base verb plus the personal pronoun prefix and any pluralization suffix if needed. So here is a table describing what prefixes and suffixes you must add to the verb. Now, if the verb or even a noun starts with a vowel, add a T to make things easier to pronounce. So, nu au, I go, is actually nu tau. So let's look at some example. How do we say we see in that we, including you, see? We have the word root see, which is nam. We add the pronoun prefix ku, but since it's we inclusive, we have to add the pluralization that's relevant, which is umun. So we inclusive si is kunamumun. And now here's some interesting rules. If the verb ends with a long vowel e or u, add m to the non-third person and w for the third person. So kaki is run, but nukakim is I run. Kukakim is you run. Kakiwa is she, he, it runs. So let's practice a sentence. Nunam ontu kausa. I see Nunam ontu kausa. The wolf. Notice how, because I'm an animate object and the wolf is an animate object, the wolf takes on the animative suffix ah, the oppiative suffix ah. Let's try a different one. Nunam anumwa, meaning I see the dog. Now, the W is an irregular form. Let's try an inanimate object. Nunam mahkushunash, meaning I see the shoes. Oh, by the way, the word for shoe in Wampanoag is related to the English word moccasin. We get the English word moccasins from the Algonquian language. We do not use the suffix as shoes aren't animate objects. Now, this gets tricky when objects do an action to a pronoun. So, it sees me, or the earth sees me if the earth has eyes. We would say nunamukun, with the un being the it and the uk being the suffix indicating the third person. You now need the it part. So, these endings show third person doing something to the first person plural inclusive, second person singular to the third person plural, so on and so forth. It's actually better to memorize these, though there are patterns which, if they help you, please use those patterns. Essentially, the verb gets conjugated as if the object is doing the action, not the subject. But then we tack on an ending saying this form is actually the object, not the subject, which comes later. So here are the relevant endings. For example, third person singular to first person or second person singular is uk. The plural is ukak, etc., etc. So let's practice. Let's say he hears me. We first have to say I hear, which is nunutam, and then we add the pronoun to pronoun suffix. Since it's third person to first person singular, we use the uk suffix. So it's nunutamuk, meaning he hears me or she hears me. There is an exception. Regularly, we would say something like they hear him would be nutamuka. But if the action is between the second person and the first person, we have to always use the second person pronoun. So we use ku, not nu. So I love you would be uwamonush, not nuwamonush. So let's see how these verbs work when a noun does a verb to the pronoun. The construct is the same, but the subject comes after the pronoun verb word. So let's say we want to say, the dog sees me. Nunam, I see, plus the third person to first person ending uk, nunamuk. Then we add the subject of the sentence, anum, dog. So, nunamuk anum, the dog sees me. Another example, to say the earth sustains them, it's wachonukuo akim. Here's an interesting feature with this language. To say I am something or he is something, to express to be, you need to take the noun that you are being and make that into a verb. Let me explain. So you have your noun, then you add the was suffix. Now that noun becomes a verb, and then you also add a helping vowel in between if needed. So let's say I want to say I am a sachem, which is a chief. Oh, by the way, that picture is of Massasoit, the chief of the Wampanoag tribe. So we have to say to be a sachem. We have to turn sachem into a verb. So we take the Wampanoag noun siotum, meaning sachem, and then turn it into a verb by adding a plus w. Remember, the w is the suffix to make noun into verb. So siotumau, to be a sachem. Then we conjugate it as usual. Nusuotumau, I am a sachem. So now that's done, here is a noun list. You might want to memorize these. Here's a body list. Here's something about the Wampanoag or the Massachusetts languages for body parts. You cannot usually say head alone or arm alone. It has to be belonging to someone. His head, my head. Just to say head in general, we use the W to make things vague, which is actually the third person prefix. But thank you for watching. I hope this video is helpful. Like and subscribe.